Emergency. Hello again, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I apologize for starting a little bit late. Welcome to the Joslin Park Community Briefing. I'm Priyanka Vikina. I'm a project manager at Boston Parks and Recreation. I'm stepping in for Kathy Baker Eclipse, who has been delayed due to some other commitments today. She'll be on a little bit later. First off, I'd like to thank you for your participation in this meeting. We know that appreciate the time you are giving from your schedule to join us this evening. At this time, I would like to welcome any elected officials and staff who made the call and ask that you raise your hand if you would like to say something. Next slide, please.
It's doing that. Sorry.
That's all right. Take your time. I just started right off the bat, so take your time.
There we go.
All right. Thank you. We did not receive any interpretation requests for this meeting, so we will be continuing in English only today. Next slide. Over before we start the presentation, please know that this meeting is being recorded so that it can be posted to the project webpage. We will also be posting the presentation slides to the website there as well. And it should be posted in about a week. We will put the link in for the project webpage in the chat in case you view this presentation and anyone who is unable to attend. Next slide, please. During the presentation, your microphone will be muted and it's up to you whether you would like to keep your video on. However, during the discussion session at the end, we encourage you to turn your video on if you feel comfortable doing so. Please be respectful of everyone's ideas, feelings, and thoughts. All questions are welcome. We hope everyone will be comfortable sharing their questions and comments either verbally or in the chat. But you are also Kathy Baker Eclipse via email if you would like to provide comments that way or to discuss the project further. And I will also provide that email in the chat in a little bit. Next slide, please. As we go through the presentation, we do ask that questions and comments are held until the end of the presentation. If it feels, press the chat throughout the course of the presentation, and we'll address those during the listening and discussion sessions. During that time, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love it if you would turn your video on. To ask a question or provide a comment, if you are joining via Zoom on a computer, use the raise hand button and we will unmute you. If anyone is calling on a phone, use *9 to raise your hand. Once we call on you, use *6 to unmute and to mute again. Next slide, please. Now that we're done with the housekeeping, let's get started on the project overview. Next slide. We will start with an introduction of the project team and then look at an overview of the project, including the schedule. MBVA will then speak about the concept plan and its impacts on existing trees. The presentation will be followed by a listening and discussion session where we invite you to share feedback and then we will discuss next steps. Next slide, please. Once again, I'm Priyanka Vikina, the project manager from Boston Parks. The city team is comprised of Kathy Baker Eclipse, Director of Design and Construction, Jill Zick, Chief Landscape Architect, Deputy Director of Design Review from Boston Planning. Michael McMillan is the Outreach Coordinator. The designer and landscape architect for this project is Michael Van Valkenburg Associates. From MBBA, we have Chris and John tonight who will be presenting the team's design work. Um, Megan Bonner is your neighborhood contact from. You're also welcome to reach out to him with any comments or questions. And Allison Springer will be moderating tonight's meeting. Next slide, please. Many of you are already aware of the project history and schedule, so I will keep this brief. The proposed One Joslin Cancer Hospital is a joint venture between Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center and Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Throughout 2024, the Boston Planning Department led an extensive public review process, including tasks with the Boston Civic Design Commission, along with evaluations by multiple city departments assessing traffic, environmental, and public realm impacts. These reviews shaped the allowable building envelope mitigation measures and a comprehensive redesign of Joslin Park and surrounding streets, emphasizing safety, accessibility, and enhanced open space. Both master plans were approved by the BPA board in 20 hour, followed by a large project review application in January 2025 that triggered further design review. The Civic Design Commission endorsed the ambitious public realm transition, recognizing the opportunity to convert Joslin Park to more serving patients, caregivers, and healthcare in the Longwood Medical area. The project received BPD approval on June 12, 2025. While the Planning Department continues to oversee building and site design, the Parks Department is leading the detailed park design through an. Next slide, please. This is the fifth community meeting for the Joslin Park project, following 3 design meetings and a tree meeting discussing how the final concept design affects existing park trees. Tonight's update focuses on how continued design development has affected on-site. The Parks Department and the Urban Forestry Division has also identified locations for transplanting those trees. And Parks' priority is to relocate trees within the Fenway area to preserve the neighborhood canopy and to support aftercare and the ultimate survival of those trees. The proposed development of the future cancer hospital on Joslin Place has really presented us with unique opportunities to renovate Joslin Park. It's very unusual for us to begin a design process in 1 year and then talk about constructing the park's suggested timeline. But the timing of the park design is tied to the advancement of the hospital project, so it's important for us to gather and incorporate timely community input as part of the overall process. Tonight's briefing will continue to inform the evolving design of the park, but the improvements will not be completed until about 2020. Construction for the hospital will begin in a few weeks. The trees designated for transplanting are scheduled to be moved from the park on March 16th, and at that time, the park will no longer be accessible. It is also important to note that funding for the park improvements is coming from the Future Cancer Hospital project and not from the City of Boston Capital Improvement Fund. Next slide.
So I'll jump in. Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you everyone for
Thank you.
joining. We are thrilled to be here, and in some ways, it's a great opportunity. This meeting is in addition to the typical public process for Boston Parks. In some ways, this particular project, though small, is quite complex, and we shared quite a lot of ambitious ideas early in a conceptual design phase that was, had a lot of different players speaking to the process and a lot of different, really very serious constraints that we were trying to weave into still what is a very sort of fluid conceptual process. So we're excited to share lots of confirmations of some of the things we presented during a concept design, and then also unpack and bring some additional resolution to the discussions we were having around existing trees. We're fortunate to work with a team that's quite committed to promoting the urban canopy and supporting the City of Boston's urban forest plan. And so everything we're doing here is, despite all of the intensely complex or immensely complex constraints tied to this project. There's quite a lot of effort going into protecting, preserving, and promoting the urban canopy through this project. So, with that said, when we last spoke, this was presented on October 8th. So, several months ago now, again, during a sort of early conceptual phase, still getting our engineers on board as part of the park. Um, but we were looking at two sort of different scenarios for how we might protect some of the existing canopy within the existing footprint of Joslin Park. And just as a reminder, that existing footprint is this narrow dashed dark blue line that I'm tracing with my cursor right now. This project is significantly expanding the reach of and the feeling of Joslin Park by expanding the boundary of it, reorganizing the adjacent roads to make it more accessible, more engaging, and more connected to the adjacent urban environment. But we were looking at two ways to preserve existing trees. One was to preserve this tree highlighted in that sort of magenta color. That's a 9.5 inch DBH sugar maple. Um, just from a sort of qualitative aspect, John and I, having spent quite a lot of time out on site, and the rest of our team felt like that was um, just one of the nicest trees on site, and so we looked at how we might explore protecting that, but then also looking at how we might um, here an opportunity B transplant some of the existing smaller trees that could be dug up and relocated to a new location within the park. These are both conceptual plan, as I said, and these were sort of two opposing or different ways to approach protecting existing canopy that we sought to explore through further design investigation. Um, Through that process and that dialogue with you all and with the city, we were encouraged to study both and look at how, we might both keep the existing tree and consider transplants of existing trees as part of this project. And this was a conceptual sketch of what that might look like. And again, as we brought additional engineers on, we brought our soil scientists on, we are our irrigation designers on, et cetera. We began to very seriously investigate what that would mean for the design of the park because we wanted to deliver something that was conceptually in line with the plan that we developed through this community process and through our dialogue with the Parks Department, the Planning Department, and all the other city agencies that have been involved in the dialogue around this park. So we really explored that, but we explored it through, as I said, some very serious parameters that are affecting both the existing site. So that's this slide showing a very serious grade change, approximately 10 feet from the left side of the plan, or sort of the sort of northwest side of the plan along Pilgrim Road, to the south and sort of east side, where we're down at elevation 39 along Brookline Ave. It also changes about 4 feet, more or less, in the very narrow distance between Deaconess Road and Joslin Place. And then on top of all that, the many utilities that are underlaid on the site, including that existing tunnel. And that's a tunnel that has become part of our design exercise for both the park and the adjacent hospital project in collaboration through this process with the city. As I said, one of the requests was to consider relocating Joslin Place. And that relocation of the road started to affect how we thought about the tunnel and what might need to happen to the tunnel to allow for that reconfiguration of the road to happen. Um, this diagram here is a sort of brief summary of all the work going into the tunnel to support the relocation of Joslin Place and the reconfiguration of Joslin Park. And still in orange underneath this, you see the existing tunnel that traces under the footprint of Joslin Park. On either end, there's these two white rectangles framed in black. This sort of pink with a diagonal stripe tunnel, that's where the tunnel will need to be strengthened to support vehicular load the over the new stretch of Joslin Place that sort of cuts directly north-south now in the reconfigured plan. So we'll need to excavate through basically the full extent of Joslin Park within that area to support the tunnel strengthening and the strengthening of the ground to support new vehicular loads. Um, the gray areas showing where we're excavating to support relocation and reconfiguration of the existing ventilation for the tunnel below. The dark blue areas here on the right side of the plan showing utilities that will be removed relative to that relocation again. And then in green showing how we're actually taking the steam lines that sit above the tunnel currently and relocating them down into the tunnel. So that work will happen sort of across the entire length of the park, of the existing park. So all of that showing the sort of um, the infrastructural gymnastics that that will be a part of how we think about protecting existing trees and how we've thought through this process. Um, so, with that in mind, revisiting the existing trees, this is a plan of what we're, as Priyanka said, planning to begin the work that we hope to begin later this month. That's all weather dependent, of course. Um, I'm a little west of the city, and we're getting another 3 to 4 inches today. So who knows when we'll be out there on site and able to think about trees and excavation, etc. But um, what we're showing here is 9 trees that are candidates for transplant, and those are trees that are both, in healthy, good condition, but also deemed viable for transplant by a certified arborist in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Um, those 9 trees, which we can look at in just a moment, while they won't necessarily be transplanted within the future Joslin Park site, they will be relocated to other City of Boston parks. So the plan there is that we're keep all of the trees they identified as possible candidates for transplants would still remain City of Boston trees within Boston public landscapes. They just won't happen here because it's simply not viable relative to the diagram that I just showed with all the complexity below grade that's about to happen in the work to support the tunnel strengthening and relocation of Joslin Place. But highlighted in blue, we are showing that 9.5 inch DBH sugar maple, the one that, as I said, we thought was quite a lovely tree to try to protect within the park. Great fall color, great structure, and supports this idea of a sort of miniature forest that we described in lots of the the early concept design meetings that I think many of you were involved in. Um, this is just looking at the sort of species, size, condition of those 9 trees. So we've got a good mix of red maples, paperbark maples, lindens, a cherry, a katsura, another linden, another cherry. All of those will be moved to other places within the city for people to enjoy to support the urban canopy. The trees that were marked that are high are grayed out in this diagram are trees that will be removed to support a new park, a new, more accessible, engaging park. Um, and as I said, the one that's highlighted in blue will remain in place. This is just showing all of the trees that will be relocated, those 9 trees that are candidates for transplant. Um, and then a plan. This is our 100% schematic design plan. So developed a bit further than the conceptual design. We're actually even a little bit further than this now. We just submitted documents for pricing and for review with the city just a few days ago. I think it was Thursday of last week. So we're continuing to move forward, continuing to develop the design, but I think as you can see in this diagram, still very much in line with the park that we designed with you all through that conceptual design phase several months ago. It's just gotten a little bit more granular in terms of what it looks and feels like, but the bones of it still very much the same. The accessibility is still very much the same, and that effort to preserve that existing tree, highlighted in blue here, fundamental to all the work that we're doing to continue to develop this plan. Um, so I think with that, our hope was to open it up to a dialogue. I don't know if it's helpful to leave that plan up or just leave it here, but Priyanka, I will pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we can just put it on the plan and if folks have questions, you can feel free to raise your hand. Yes, ME.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I just had one question. So within the park, there's a very large apple tree, and it grows like full apples, not like crab apples, but like typical apples you would find in a store. From what I recall, it's directly across from the Rosenberg building. It may have been tree 16. I just wanted to know if you guys were aware of that tree and what you guys may, what the plan would be with that specific apple tree.
Sure. So that tree, I can go back a few slides if that's helpful, to show it in the context of the existing plan. I believe, yes, that's
Yeah.
tree number
Yeah.
16. So it is one of the larger in terms of its footprint and its critical root zone. It's one of the larger trees on site, and because it has such a wide spread, its roots spread over the tunnel and out under and through the sidewalk. All of that is both, conflicting with all the tunnel work that's about to happen below, but it's also quite limiting in terms of making the park more accessible, more open. Um, and so that is one of the trees that all of these that are sort of a hollow green circle, these are trees that will be removed as part of this project, including tree
I
number
see.
15.
And not to be transplanted, but to be, cut down.
That's correct. It's simply too large to transplant.
Okay, I see what you mean. Um, okay, the only thing that I would recommend is I did hear this from a couple of my colleagues, but one thing since it is a fruit bearing tree, I know specifically under like Jewish religious law, it's considered like sinful to cut down a fruit bearing tree. So I don't know if that would be anything that would be of concern to people who may work in the area, but I just wanted to kind of note that cultural concern just to, you know, kind of keep in the back of your guys' head if you haven't heard of that, but just to, let you guys know in case that may become an issue at some point.
Yeah, thank you. No, I
Thank you.
appreciate that feedback.
Okay. Well, that's all I have. You guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Any other questions?
Um, Hi, I just have a few comments. That's okay. Um, Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Siobhan Brittle Anthony. I'm a lifelong Boston resident, born and raised in the South End, and now living in Dorchester. My mom and nephew have both been patients at Beth Israel, and during some of the most difficult moments of our family's life, we found ourselves in Joslin Park, just stepping outside after appointments, sitting together, and having conversations about care decisions and next steps. The availability of outdoor space for patients and families, it can promote relaxation, reduce stress, and support emotional well-being, which are essential parts of the healing process. When you're facing a diagnosis or supporting someone you love, even a few minutes to breathe and sit quietly and gather your thoughts can really make a difference. So I support the redesign of Joslin Park. It'll create a more welcoming and usable space for patients and caregivers. It'll, provide more seating and gathering areas that truly meet the needs of the families during their most vulnerable moments. And it really has the potential to become a true place of respite, like an outdoor extension of the care happening inside of the hospital. So I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you so much for letting me speak and be here today.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. Again, the presentation and this recording will be up on the week. Um, And if you have any other questions, feel free to send an email to Kathy Baker Eclipse that's shared in the chat. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.